My name is Tom Black, and I'm an actor, and I'll be playing the role of Douglas Remington Hobbs. And his job, as you can see, he's a civilian. He is actually a civil servant, a relatively senior one, who's been stationed down here in the Cabinet Auxiliary War Rooms. And he has two jobs. One is to ensure the smooth running of Parliament if the MPs who are present need to have any kind of debates. And also he is in charge of what could become the Foreign Office in the event that anything disastrous happens and the MPs need to form a government. So he's a diplomat by trade, and he knows a little bit about Parliament as well, so he volunteers to do that.
So double personality for you.
Yes, he has to be diplomatic in everything he does, whether it's solving disputes between audience members, obviously who are all the MPs, or putting audience members, for example, the Foreign Secretary, because that's a member of the audience gets elected to be Foreign Secretary. That person will then want to speak to the President of the United States, the French Resistance, various groups that Britain was talking to during the war, and so I have to react to that and put people in touch with those people.
Is there a side that you prefer? You prefer to be a civilian or a diplomat? It's actually probably the most fun in Parliament because it's most unpredictable. There are the Foreign Office sections of the show. There is, a lot of flexibility, but there's certain things that I always know are going to happen, like they're always going to speak to a resistance group, for example. It's up to them which one they'd like to talk to, but I always know that'll happen. In Parliament, it's a little bit more freewheeling because, again, while there are certain topics that are always going to come up, some of the topics depend entirely on what they do in the game. For example, some things only come up if they make certain decisions on the front line in terms of how the military side of the war goes, and some things come up just because an audience member suggests it. Because it's like Parliament, if they say, I have a motion, Mr. Speaker, I can go, let's hear your motion and let's debate it, and that can happen live, and I will have no idea what happens. So that's fun. It's fun to stay on your toes that way. So most of the game and of the magic of the show depends on the audience.
Yes. Most of the magic is in the audience's hands. It's a show that is, I call it an immersive game because it is actually a game. What you do affects the show. The show will change based on what you've done in a much greater sense than anything I've ever seen, certainly anything I've ever been part of. Not to give too much away, but what you do genuinely affects it. As I say, with the Foreign Office, I was saying a moment ago, some of the decisions you have to make, of course I know what those decisions are in advance, but I don't know what you're going to do. And so if you choose to work with someone we're not expecting you to work with, or you give them support in a different way, that will affect everything from the front line to how you're being perceived internationally, how the Americans view you, even how the Soviet Union can view you, all the major powers of World War II. And the other day somebody asked to speak to Brazil and try and get the Brazilian government into the war, and we'd never had that before, but again, because we react to what they do, we made that happen. He was able to telephone our embassy in Brazil and try and speak to the Brazilians.
So I guess it's all about the new emotions you feel with the new audience all the time. So what's your expectation for tonight?
Tonight we have a full house, which is always exciting. We have more than a full house, I think, slightly over, which is really exciting. Those tend to be quite loud shows, as you'd expect, and obviously with my job being running Parliament, that can get a little bit rowdy. Particularly when some drink has been taken. But we shall. I think it's midweek, so I'm not expecting too much booziness today. But I am expecting some fiery debates. I'm expecting lots of contests when it comes to electing, because the cabinet, as I was saying, and not just the Foreign Secretary, but the Prime Minister as well, is elected by the audience. I have no say in who gets to be those people. So there'll probably be a fair few candidates for each role, and the debates might take longer than they sometimes do when there's that many people. And I try to make sure everyone, if they have their hand in the air, has their say, because they're here, they have a right to be heard. Yeah.
Well.